I'm Colton, 32 male. I'm a veterinarian in the small town of Cedar Falls. My life has always been defined by a comfortable, predictable routine. I fix up farm dogs, I help birth calves, and every single Sunday I go to my parents' house for dinner. It's been this way for as long as I can remember. It's quiet, it's stable, and it's exactly the life I thought I wanted. At least it was quiet. Until one Sunday, my grandfather handed me a plain manila envelope that systematically unraveled every single thing I believed to be true about my life, my family, and myself. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. Sunday dinners at my parents' house were a sacred ritual. The chaos was the comfort. You'd walk in and be hit by the smell of my mother's pot roast, a scent that basically defined my childhood. My 4-year-old twin nephews, Tommy and Ben, were usually in the process of building some kind of fort out of the dining room chairs, their voices a constant happy shriek. My sister Penny would be trying to wrangle them, while her husband Derek filmed the chaos on his phone, laughing. Derek had been in our family for 8 years, and he fit in seamlessly from day one. He was the brother I never had. My dad Wayne would be at the table complaining about lumber prices at the hardware store he owned, and my mom Joyce would be fluttering around, insisting everyone was too thin and needed to eat more. And then there was Grandpa Rubens. At 78, my grandfather was the anchor of our family. He was a retired railroad man, tough as nails, with eyes that saw everything. He was my hero. More than that, he had this uncanny ability to be right about things, big things. He predicted a flood 3 days before the weather service, and he told me not to take a job in Denver because the company would fold. It did 6 months later. But this Sunday, something was wrong. He was quiet. He wasn't watching the twins, he was watching me. His usual warm smile was tight, his fingers drumming on the table. He kept asking me strange, specific questions. Colton, you still driving that old pickup? You remember where I taught you to fish down by Miller's Creek? Still got that camping gear I gave you? It felt less like conversation and more like an inventory. The familiar warmth of the dining room suddenly felt cold, and the walls seemed to be pressing in. After dessert, during the clatter of plates being cleared, Grandpa stood. Colton, come give me a hand in the kitchen. I followed him, carrying a stack of plates. The moment the swinging door closed, cutting off the sound of the family, the atmosphere changed. The comforting smell of cinnamon and roast beef was gone, replaced by a tension so thick I could barely breathe. He didn't take the plates. He grabbed my wrist, and his grip was shockingly strong. It hurt. Listen carefully, he whispered, his voice urgent. He pulled a worn manila envelope from inside his cardigan. Don't open this here, not here, go home, pack a bag, pack it tonight. I started to laugh, but the look in his eyes stopped me. I had never, in my 32 years, seen my grandfather afraid. This was a man who'd pulled men from a derailed freight car. Now he was terrified. What are you talking about, Grandpa? They're watching you, he hissed, pressing the envelope into my palm. I could feel something hard and rectangular inside it, a key. You have 24 hours, not a minute more. Before I could ask who they were, the kitchen door swung open. It was Derek. He stood in the doorway holding 2 empty pie plates. He smiled, but his eyes weren't part of it. His gaze dropped from my face to Grandpa's and then locked onto the envelope in my hand. For one split second, his expression wasn't one of confusion. It was recognition. Grandpa was instant. He laughed, a loud, fake sound. Just giving Colton your grandmother's old recipe for pot roast. The boy can't cook to save his life. I forced a smile, sliding the envelope into my jacket pocket. It's true, I burn water. Derek's smile tightened. He walked to the sink, setting the plates down slowly. Family recipes, he said, his voice casual but with an edge I'd never heard. Those are important. You should always hold on to them. The way he said it made my skin crawl. The drive back to my apartment above the bakery was torture. Every set of headlights in my rearview mirror felt like a threat. I took 3 wrong turns and doubled back twice, just like Grandpa had taught me when I was a teenager. A lesson I always thought was about paranoid ex-girlfriends, but now felt terrifyingly real. I locked my door, slid the deadbolt, and pulled every blind closed. My apartment, my sanctuary, suddenly felt like a glass box. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely tear the envelope. Pen. 3 things fell onto my kitchen counter. First, a brass key stamped with the number 47. Second, a faded photograph. It showed a much younger Grandpa Reuben in a railroad uniform, standing next to a beautiful, dark-haired woman I had never seen before. Third, a single sheet of paper folded in half. On it were 5 words in my grandfather's neat, careful handwriting. Your father isn't your father. I read the words, then I read them again and again. My legs gave out and I sank into a kitchen chair. It didn't make sense. Wayne Bridges was my father. He'd taught me to ride a bike. He'd paid for veterinary school. He was the kindest, most decent man I knew. This note was a lie. It had to be. I picked up the photograph again, studying the unknown woman. There was something familiar about her. I walked into the bathroom and looked in the mirror. My own eyes stared back. And then I saw it. She had my eyes. That same unusual shade of green that no one else in my family had. Not my mom, not my dad. The note wasn't a lie. My entire life was. The brass key sat on the counter, gleaming under the light. Storage Unit 47. Whatever truth was waiting for me, it was locked in a box across town. I didn't rush to the storage unit. Grandpa's warning, 24 hours, meant there was a reason to wait. Rushing was what they would expect. I spent the night following his instructions. I packed a bag, practical clothes, my passport, and every dollar I had in the house. I went to my truck and grabbed my full veterinary medical kit. Instinct told me I might need antibiotics and sutures more than clean socks. At 6 a.m., I called my clinic and left a message, the lie slipping out with disturbing ease. Severe food poisoning. I'll be out for a few days. The drive to Riverside Storage was agonizing. I watched every car, memorized every turn. Unit 47 was in the back corner, covered in dust. The key slid into the lock and turned stiffly. The air inside was stale. Illuminated by a single pull-chain bulb, the room was filled with bankers' boxes and a small, fireproof safe. I pulled a box labeled Transition. My world ended for the second time. It wasn't filled with old photos. It was filled with Department of Justice documents, Witness Protection Program agreements, and a birth certificate for one Colton James Novick, born on my birthday but with a name I'd never heard. The documents told a story that felt like a movie. My real father was Felix Novick, an accountant for the Morty crime family in Chicago. He detestified, sending the boss and 6 others to prison. The woman in the photo was his sister, Alina. She was murdered 3 weeks after the trial as payback. My mother, Joyce, was Felix's pregnant girlfriend. The U.S. Marshals had given her a new identity, moved her to Iowa, and arranged for her to meet a kind, lonely hardware store owner named Wayne Bridges. A man who married her knowing she was pregnant and raised me as his own, never knowing the full, violent truth. And Grandpa Reuben, he wasn't my grandfather. He was Marshal Reuben Chase, my father's handler, retired from the service to watch over us in secret. Every fishing trip, every chess game, he wasn't being a grandfather, he was training me. My hands were shaking as I opened the safe. The combination was my birthday. Inside was $50,000 in cash, a Glock 19, which I stared at horrified, and a burner phone. The moment I picked up the phone, it rang. My heart leaped into my throat. I answered. Colton. It was Reuben's voice, but not. This wasn't my grandpa. This was Marshal Chase, all business, clipped and cold. Is any of it real? I whispered, my voice cracking. Was any of it? The love was real, he said, his voice softening for just a second. Everything that mattered was real, but listen, we're out of time. He explained everything. Felix, my real father, was alive. He'd recently tried to contact me. The letter was intercepted by Derek. Derek, I said, stunned. He married Penny to get close to the family. He works for the Mortys. He's been their spy for 8 years. Now they know you exist. Your leverage, son, leverage to draw Felix out. My mind reeled. Derek playing football with his sons. Derek helping my dad rebuild the deck. A spy, a monster. There's a bus ticket in the safe, Reuben said. It leaves in 2 hours. Someone will meet you in Memphis. You have to go now. I was stuffing cash into my backpack when I heard it. A sound from outside. Gravel crunching. Slow, deliberate footsteps. My blood turned to ice. I dropped the burner phone and yanked the pull chain, plunging the unit into darkness. I crept to the door, my heart hammering against my ribs, and peered through the tiny crack. A figure stood 20 feet away, hands in his pockets, silhouetted against the morning light. It was Derek. I know you're in there, Colton, he called out, his voice calm. I'm alone, we need to talk. I stayed frozen, my hand trembling near the backpack that held the gun. I was a vet, I saved lives. I had no idea how to take one. You could wait, Derek called, but they'll be here in 20 minutes. Reuben's smart, but I'm in their network. I know the false leads he plants. I had no choice, I opened the door. He stood there looking tired. He didn't look like a mobster, he just looked like my brother-in-law. You couldn't just leave it alone, could you? He said, more sad than angry. 20 years and Felix has to send a letter. You married my sister. I did, he cut me off. I was sent here to watch, a spy, and then the stupidest thing happened. I actually fell in love with her. I fell in love with her laugh, with her terrible cooking, with her whole crazy family. He took a step closer. I love those boys, Colton. They're my life. I convinced the family to let it go, told them Felix was dead, that you were just a farm town vet, and they agreed. Until that letter proved Felix was alive. So you're here to kill me, I said, my voice flat. No, Derek shook his head. I'm here to save you. He explained that the new generation of Mortys wanted blood. They were going to take me to draw Felix out. But I can't let that happen, he said, his voice breaking. My boys, they adore their Uncle Colton. Penny, she would never ever forgive me. He pulled a set of keys from his pocket and tossed them to me, a gray Honda. It's clean. Ruben arranged it last week. That paranoid old Marshal really did think of everything. Derek, if they find out. They will, he said, and they'll punish me. They'll make me watch them hurt Penny to make me pay, which is why you have to disappear, not just run, vanish. Colton Bridges has to die today so Penny and my boys get to live. He pulled out his phone and showed me a tracker, 3 red dots converging on a different storage facility across town. My false lid, it won't buy you much time, go now. I grabbed my bags at the door. I turned, take care of them. With my life, Derek said, and I believed him. Now go, live a life Felix would be proud of. I didn't go to Memphis. That was Ruben's plan, which meant Derek knew it, which meant the mob would figure it out. Instead, I drove north to a small town in Iowa, to a name Ruben had mentioned once in a story I thought was about his railroad days. She was another retired marshal. She ran a diner and had a new life waiting for me. I became Nathan Frost, a traveling livestock inspector, a job that kept me moving, kept me anonymous, a ghost. 3 months later, a postcard arrived at my mail drop. It was a picture of the Cedar Falls Water Tower. On the back, in Grandpa's handwriting, weather's been clear, no storms expected, the garden's growing well. It was code, you're safe, they stopped looking, the family is okay. I still have that postcard. I keep it with the photo of Felix and Alina, my father and my aunt, people I will never know but whose choices defined my entire existence. I think about my family every day. I think about Wayne Bridges, the man who raised me, who loved me knowing I wasn't his, who was my father in every single way that mattered. I think about my mom, who lived a 30-year lie to keep me safe. I think about Derek, the man who lived a lie and found his truth. He chose my sister's family over his blood, and he's protecting them from shadows they'll never even know exist. Sometimes my route takes me past the highway exit for Cedar Falls. I see the sign, I never take the turn. But on Sunday nights at 6 p.m., no matter what motel I'm in or what diner I'm sitting at, I stop, I eat my dinner, and I raise my glass to the family I can never see again. The family that loved me enough to let me go so that I could keep on living. The love was real. In the end, that's the only part that was.